dear listeners, and welcome to our podcast, Expressing Emotions and Feelings. I'm Sophia.
And I'm James. Thank you for joining us today. We are here to help you learn English, and today we are going to talk about how to express your emotions and feelings.
That's right, James. Expressing emotions is a very important part of communication. When we talk about our feelings, we can connect better with other people. It helps us build relationships and understand each other.
Exactly, Sophia, but sometimes it can be difficult to find the right words, especially if you are still learning English. So, in this podcast, we will help you learn some simple and useful words and phrases to express your emotions and feelings.
Let's start with some basic emotions. James, can you tell us what emotions are?
Sure, Sophia. Emotions are feelings that we have inside. They can be good or bad. For example, when you are happy, sad, angry, or scared, you are feeling different emotions.
Yes, and everyone has these feelings. It's normal to feel different emotions every day. Let's start with one of the most common emotions, happiness. James, how do you express happiness?
When I feel happy, I usually smile a lot. I might say things like, I am so happy today, or this makes me very happy. You can also use words like joyful, excited, or pleased. For example, I am excited about my new job, or I am pleased with my test results.
Those are great examples, James. Another way to show happiness is by using body language. You can clap your hands, jump up and down, or give someone a hug.
That's true, Sophia. Now, let's talk about sadness. How do you express sadness?
When I feel sad, I might say, I feel sad, or I am feeling down. Other words you can use are unhappy, upset, or miserable. For example, I am upset about the bad news, or I feel miserable because I am sick.
Sometimes, when people are sad, they might cry or look down. It's okay to feel sad sometimes. It's a normal emotion, just like happiness.
Yes, it's important to talk about your feelings. It can help you feel better. Now, let's talk about another common emotion, anger. James, how do you express anger?
When I feel angry, I might say, I am angry, or this makes me so mad. Other words you can use are upset, furious, or annoyed. For example, I am furious about what happened, or I feel annoyed because my plans changed.
Sometimes, when people are angry, they might raise their voice or clench their fists. It's important to calm down and talk about why you are angry.
That's right, Sophia. It's okay to feel angry, but it's important to express it in a healthy way. Now, let's talk about fear. How do you express fear?
When I feel scared, I might say, I am scared, or I am afraid. Other words you can use are frightened, nervous, or worried. For example, I am frightened by the dark, or I feel nervous about the test.
Sometimes, when people are scared, they might shake or their heart might beat fast. It's okay to feel scared, and talking about it can help you feel better.
Yes, it's very important to talk about your feelings. Now, let's review what we talked about today. We learned how to express happiness, sadness, anger, and fear.
That's right, Sophia. We used simple words and phrases to describe these emotions. We also talked about how our body language can show our feelings.
We talked about some basic emotions like happiness, sadness, anger, and fear. Now, we will explore more emotions and learn how to express them.
That's right, Sophia. Emotions are a big part of our lives, and knowing how to express them can really help us in our daily interactions. So, let's dive right in.
Let's start with the emotion of surprise. James, can you tell us how you express surprise?
Sure, Sophia. When I feel surprised, I might say, wow, or oh my gosh. These are common expressions of surprise. You can also use words like astonished, amazed, or shocked. For example, I am astonished by the news, or I was amazed by the performance.
That's a good point, James. Another way to show surprise is through your facial expressions. Your eyes might open wide, or you might raise your eyebrows. Your mouth might open as well.
Yes, body language is very important in expressing emotions. Now, let's talk about the emotion of love. Love is a very strong emotion. Sophia, how do you express love?
When I feel love, I might say, I love you, or you mean so much to me. Other words you can use are adore, cherish, or fond of. For example, I adore my family, or I am very fond of my friends.
Love can also be shown through actions, like giving hugs, holding hands, or doing something special for someone. It's not just about words.
Absolutely, James. Showing love through actions can sometimes speak louder than words. Now, let's talk about the emotion of disgust. James, how do you express disgust?
When I feel disgusted, I might say, that's gross, or this is disgusting. Other words you can use are repulsed, nauseated, or sickened. For example, I am repulsed by the smell, or I feel nauseated by the sight.
Yes, and when people feel disgusted, they might wrinkle their nose or make a face. It's a strong reaction to something unpleasant.
That's true. Now, let's move on to the emotion of jealousy. Sophia, how do you express jealousy?
When I feel jealous, I might say, I feel jealous, or I wish I had that. Other words you can use are envious or covetous. For example, I am envious of her success, or he is covetous of his friend's new car.
Sometimes, jealousy can be a difficult emotion to deal with. It's important to talk about it and understand why you feel that way.
Yes, talking about your feelings can help you manage them better. Now, let's talk about gratitude. Gratitude is a positive emotion that we feel when we are thankful. James, how do you express gratitude?
When I feel grateful, I might say thank you, or I am so grateful. Other words you can use are appreciate, thankful, or grateful. For example, I appreciate your help, or I am thankful for your kindness.
Showing gratitude can also be done through actions, like giving a gift or writing a thank you note. It's a wonderful way to express your feelings.
Yes, expressing gratitude can make both you and the other person feel good. Now, let's discuss the emotion of pride. Sophia, how do you express pride?
When I feel proud, I might say, I am proud of you, or I feel proud. Other words you can use are pleased, satisfied, or content. For example, I am pleased with my work, or I feel content with my achievements.
Feeling proud is a positive emotion that can motivate us to keep doing our best. It's important to acknowledge our own achievements and those of others.
Yes, recognizing our accomplishments is very important. Now, let's talk about confusion. James, how do you express confusion?
When I feel confused, I might say, I don't understand, or I am confused. Other words you can use are puzzled or bewildered. For example, I am puzzled by the instructions, or I feel bewildered by the situation.
Sometimes, when people are confused, they might frown or scratch their head. It's a common reaction when we don't understand something.
Yes, and asking questions can help clear up confusion. It's always good to ask for help when you need it.
Absolutely. James, now, let's talk about the emotion of calmness. How do you express calmness?
When I feel calm, I might say, I am feeling calm, or I am at peace. Other words you can use are relaxed or serene. For example, I feel relaxed after the yoga class, or the serene environment makes me feel at peace.
Being calm can also be shown through deep breathing and a relaxed posture. It's important to find ways to relax and stay calm, especially in stressful situations.
That's true, Sophia. Now, let's review what we talked about today. We learned how to express surprise, love, disgust, jealousy, gratitude, pride, confusion, and calmness.
Yes, we use simple words and phrases to describe these emotions. We also talked about how our body language can show our feelings.
We explored more emotions like surprise, love, disgust, jealousy, gratitude, pride, confusion, and calmness. And now, we're going to dive even deeper into more complex emotions and how to express them.
That's right, James. Emotions are complex and varied, and understanding them can help us communicate better. Let's start with the emotion of embarrassment. James, how do you express embarrassment?
When I feel embarrassed, I might say, I feel so embarrassed, or this is embarrassing. Other words you can use are ashamed, self-conscious, or humiliated. For example, I am ashamed of my mistake, or I feel self-conscious when I speak in public.
Yes, and when people are embarrassed, they might blush or avoid eye contact. It's a normal reaction to feeling exposed or awkward.
Exactly, Sophia. Now, let's talk about the emotion of anticipation. This is the feeling we get when we are looking forward to something. How do you express anticipation?
When I feel anticipation, I might say, I can't wait, or I am looking forward to it. Other words you can use are excited, eager, or expectant. For example, I am excited about the trip, or I feel eager to start my new job.
Anticipation can be a positive emotion that makes us feel motivated and hopeful. It's important to share our excitement with others.
Absolutely, James. Now, let's talk about guilt. Guilt is a negative emotion that we feel when we think we have done something wrong. James, how do you express guilt?
When I feel guilty, I might say, I feel guilty, or I am sorry. Other words you can use are regretful, remorseful, or ashamed. For example, I am regretful for what I said, or I feel remorseful about my actions.
Sometimes, when people feel guilty, they might apologize or try to make up for their mistake. It's important to acknowledge our feelings and take responsibility for our actions.
That's true, Sophia. Now, let's discuss the emotion of loneliness. Loneliness is the feeling we get when we feel alone or disconnected from others. How do you express loneliness?
When I feel lonely, I might say, I feel lonely, or I am all alone. Other words you can use are isolated, alone, or forsaken. For example, I feel isolated in this new city, or I am alone without my friends.
Loneliness can be a difficult emotion to deal with, but it's important to reach out to others and let them know how you feel. Connecting with people can help reduce loneliness.
Yes, talking to someone can make a big difference. Now, let's talk about the emotion of hope. Hope is a positive emotion that we feel when we believe that something good will happen. James, how do you express hope?
When I feel hopeful, I might say, I hope so, or I am hopeful. Other words you can use are optimistic, expectant, or encouraged. For example, I am optimistic about the future, or I feel encouraged by the progress we have made.
Hope can be very powerful. It gives us strength and motivation to keep going, even in difficult times.
That's right, Sophia. Now, let's talk about the emotion of frustration. Frustration is the feeling we get when things don't go as planned. How do you express frustration?
When I feel frustrated, I might say, I am frustrated, or this is frustrating. Other words you can use are annoyed, irritated, or exasperated. For example, I am annoyed by the delays, or I feel irritated by the noise.
Sometimes, when people are frustrated, they might sigh, clench their fists, or even raise their voice. It's important to find healthy ways to manage frustration.
Yes, taking deep breaths and talking about what's bothering you can help reduce frustration. Now, let's talk about the emotion of awe. Awe is the feeling we get when we see something amazing or beautiful. James, how do you express awe?
When I feel awe, I might say, this is amazing, or I am in awe. Other words you can use are wonder, astonishment, or admiration. For example, I am filled with wonder at the sight, or I feel admiration for her talent.
Awe can be a very inspiring emotion. It reminds us of the beauty and greatness in the world around us.
Absolutely, Sophia. Now, let's discuss the emotion of disappointment. Disappointment is the feeling we get when things don't turn out as we hoped. How do you express disappointment?
When I feel disappointed, I might say, I am disappointed, or this is disappointing. Other words you can use are let down, discouraged, or disheartened. For example, I feel let down by the results, or I am discouraged by the outcome.
Disappointment is a natural part of life. It's important to acknowledge it and then find ways to move forward.
Yes, learning from our disappointments can help us grow. Now, let's talk about the emotion of envy. Envy is similar to jealousy, but it often involves wanting what someone else has. James, how do you express envy?
When I feel envious, I might say, I feel envious, or I wish I had that. Other words you can use are covetous or jealous. For example, I am envious of her new car, or he is jealous of his friend's success.
Envy can be a difficult emotion to manage, but it's important to focus on our own strengths and achievements.
That's true, Sophia. Now, let's talk about the emotion of contentment. Contentment is the feeling we get when we are satisfied with what we have. How do you express contentment?
When I feel content, I might say, I am content, or I am satisfied. Other words you can use are pleased, happy, or fulfilled. For example, I am pleased with my life, or I feel fulfilled in my career.
Contentment is a wonderful emotion. It helps us appreciate the present moment and what we have.
Yes, being content can bring a lot of peace and happiness. Now, let's review what we talked about today. We learned how to express embarrassment, anticipation, guilt, loneliness, hope, frustration, awe, disappointment, envy, and contentment.
That's right, Sophia. We used simple words and phrases to describe these emotions. We also talked about how our body language can show our feelings.
We will talk about even more emotions and how to express them.
We talked about a variety of emotions and how to express them. And now we will explore some more subtle and mixed emotions.
That's right, James. Emotions can sometimes be complex and not always easy to understand or express. But it's important to try, because it helps us communicate better with others and understand ourselves more deeply. Let's start with the emotion of relief. James, how do you express relief?
When I feel relieved, I might say, I am so relieved, or what a relief. Other words you can use are thankful, comforted, or glad. For example, I am thankful the exam is over, or I feel comforted knowing everyone is safe.
Yes, and when people feel relieved, they might sigh deeply or smile. It's the feeling you get when a stressful situation is resolved.
Exactly, Sophia. Now, let's talk about the emotion of admiration. Admiration is the feeling we get when we look up to someone or something. How do you express admiration?
When I feel admiration, I might say, I admire you, or that's amazing. Other words you can use are respect, look up to, or inspired. For example, I respect your hard work, or I look up to my parents.
Admiration can also be shown through our actions, like giving compliments or emulating someone we admire. It's a positive emotion that can motivate us to be better.
Absolutely, James. Now, let's discuss the emotion of nostalgia. Nostalgia is the feeling we get when we remember something from the past that makes us happy. How do you express nostalgia?
When I feel nostalgic, I might say, this reminds me of the good old days, or I miss those times. Other words you can use are sentimental or yearning. For example, I feel sentimental about my childhood, or I yearn for the days when we used to play together.
Nostalgia can make us feel both happy and a little sad. It's a mix of emotions, but it's a way to cherish our memories.
Yes, it's important to appreciate our past experiences. Now, let's talk about the emotion of serenity. Serenity is the feeling of being calm and peaceful. How do you express serenity?
When I feel serene, I might say, I am at peace, or I feel calm. Other words you can use are tranquil, relaxed, or content. For example, I feel tranquil by the lake, or I am relaxed after the meditation.
Serenity can be shown through a relaxed posture and a gentle smile. It's a state of inner peace that can be very soothing.
Absolutely, James. Now, let's talk about the emotion of curiosity. Curiosity is the desire to learn or know more about something. how do you express curiosity?
When I feel curious, I might say, I wonder, or I am curious about that. Other words you can use are interested, inquisitive, or intrigued. For example, I am interested in learning new languages, or I feel intrigued by the mystery.
Curiosity can lead to asking questions and exploring new ideas. It's a positive emotion that drives learning and discovery.
Yes, curiosity can open up many new opportunities. Now, let's discuss the emotion of regret. Regret is the feeling we get when we wish we had done something differently. How do you express regret?
When I feel regret, I might say, I regret that, or I wish I hadn't done that. Other words you can use are sorry, remorseful, or contrite. For example, I am sorry for my actions, or I feel remorseful about my decisions.
Regret can be a heavy emotion, but it's important to learn from our mistakes and move forward. Acknowledging our feelings can help us make better choices in the future.
Yes, learning from regret can lead to personal growth. Now, let's talk about the emotion of pride in someone else. This is the feeling we get when we are proud of someone else's achievements. James, how do you express pride in someone else?
When I feel proud of someone else, I might say, I am so proud of you, or you did a great job. Other words you can use are impressed, admire, or respect. For example, I am impressed by your dedication, or I admire your hard work.
Showing pride in someone else can be very encouraging for them. It helps them feel valued and appreciated.
Yes, it can be very motivating. Now, let's discuss the emotion of suspicion. Suspicion is the feeling we get when we think something is wrong or someone is not being honest. How do you express suspicion?
When I feel suspicious, I might say, I am not sure about this, or I have a bad feeling. Other words you can use are doubtful, skeptical, or uneasy. For example, I am doubtful of his intentions, or I feel uneasy about this situation.
Suspicion can be a protective emotion, but it's important to seek clarity and not jump to conclusions.
Yes, asking questions and seeking the truth is important. Now, let's talk about the emotion of longing. Longing is the feeling we get when we deeply desire something or someone. How do you express longing?
When I feel longing, I might say, I miss you, or I wish you were here. Other words you can use are yearn, desire, or crave. For example, I yearn for my hometown, or I crave adventure.
Longing can be a powerful emotion that connects us to our deepest desires and dreams.
Yes, it's important to acknowledge our longings and work towards fulfilling them. Now, let's discuss the emotion of amusement. Amusement is the feeling we get when something is funny or entertaining. How do you express amusement?
When I feel amused, I might say, that's funny, or I am entertained. Other words you can use are delighted, tickled, or charmed. For example, I am delighted by your jokes, or I feel tickled by the story.
Amusement often comes with laughter and smiling. It's a light-hearted emotion that brings joy.
Yes, laughter is a great way to express amusement. Now, let's review what we talked about today. We learned how to express relief, admiration, nostalgia, serenity, curiosity, regret, pride in someone else, suspicion, longing, and amusement.
That's right, Sophia. We used simple words and phrases to describe these emotions. We also talked about how our body language can show our feelings.
We will talk about even more emotions and how to express them.
We've covered a wide range of emotions and how to express them. And now we will delve into some more nuanced emotions and wrap up our discussion with some tips on mastering the art of emotional expression.
That's right, James. Emotions are a fundamental part of our human experience, and being able to express them effectively can enhance our relationships and overall well-being. Let's start with the emotion of gratitude. James, how do you express gratitude?
When I feel grateful, I might say thank you or I appreciate it. Other words you can use are thankful, grateful, or obliged. For example, I am thankful for your help, or I feel grateful for your support.
Yes, expressing gratitude can also be done through actions, like giving a small gift or writing a thank you note. It's a wonderful way to show someone that you value their kindness.
Absolutely, Sophia. Now, let's talk about the emotion of compassion. Compassion is the feeling we get when we want to help someone who is suffering. How do you express compassion?
When I feel compassionate, I might say, I am here for you, or I understand how you feel. Other words you can use are empathetic, caring, or sympathetic. For example, I am empathetic to your situation, or I feel caring towards those in need.
Compassion can also be shown through actions, like offering support, listening attentively, or simply being present for someone.
Yes, showing compassion can make a big difference in someone's life. Now, let's discuss the emotion of embarrassment. James, how do you express embarrassment?
When I feel embarrassed, I might say, I feel so embarrassed, or this is embarrassing. Other words you can use are ashamed, self-conscious, or humiliated. For example, I am ashamed of my mistake, or I feel self-conscious when I speak in public.
Embarrassment can also be shown through physical reactions like blushing or avoiding eye contact. It's a normal reaction to feeling exposed or awkward.
Exactly, Sophia. Now, let's talk about the emotion of empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. How do you express empathy?
When I feel empathetic, I might say, I understand how you feel, or I can relate to your experience. Other words you can use are compassionate, sympathetic, or understanding. For example, I feel compassionate towards your situation, or I am sympathetic to your pain.
Empathy can also be shown through active listening and offering support without judgment. It's about connecting with others on a deeper level.
Yes, empathy is a key component of emotional intelligence. Now, let's talk about the emotion of guilt. Guilt is the feeling we get when we think we have done something wrong. How do you express guilt?
When I feel guilty, I might say, I feel guilty, or I am sorry. Other words you can use are regretful, remorseful, or ashamed. For example, I am regretful for what I said, or I feel remorseful about my actions.
Sometimes, when people feel guilty, they might apologize or try to make amends. It's important to acknowledge our feelings and take responsibility for our actions.
That's true, Sophia. Now, let's discuss the emotion of joy. Joy is a feeling of great happiness and pleasure. How do you express joy?
When I feel joyful, I might say, I am so happy, or this is wonderful. Other words you can use are delighted, ecstatic, or thrilled. For example, I am delighted with the news, or I feel ecstatic about our success.
Joy can also be shown through smiling, laughing, and other expressions of excitement. It's a contagious emotion that can lift the spirits of those around us.
Absolutely, James. Now, let's talk about the emotion of nervousness. Nervousness is the feeling we get when we are anxious or uneasy about something. How do you express nervousness?
When I feel nervous, I might say, I am nervous, or I feel anxious. Other words you can use are worried, tense, or apprehensive. For example, I am worried about the presentation, or I feel tense before the interview.
Nervousness can also be shown through physical reactions like sweating, shaking, or a racing heart. It's important to find ways to calm down and manage these feelings.
Yes, taking deep breaths and practicing relaxation techniques can help. Now, let's discuss the emotion of envy. Envy is similar to jealousy, but it often involves wanting what someone else has. How do you express envy?
When I feel envious, I might say, I feel envious, or I wish I had that. Other words you can use are covetous or jealous. For example, I am envious of her new car, or he is jealous of his friend's success.
Envy can be a difficult emotion to manage, but it's important to focus on our own strengths and achievements.
That's true, James. Now, let's talk about the emotion of contentment. Contentment is the feeling we get when we are satisfied with what we have. How do you express contentment?
When I feel content, I might say, I am content, or I am satisfied. Other words you can use are pleased, happy, or fulfilled. For example, I am pleased with my life, or I feel fulfilled in my career.
Contentment is a wonderful emotion. It helps us appreciate the present moment and what we have.
Yes, being content can bring a lot of peace and happiness. Now, let's talk about the emotion of confusion. Confusion is the feeling we get when we don't understand something. How do you express confusion?
When I feel confused, I might say, I don't understand, or I am confused. Other words you can use are puzzled or bewildered. For example, I am puzzled by the instructions, or I feel bewildered by the situation.
Sometimes, when people are confused, they might frown or scratch their head. It's a common reaction when we don't understand something.
Yes, and asking questions can help clear up confusion. It's always good to ask for help when you need it.
Absolutely, Sophia. Now, let's talk about the emotion of excitement. Excitement is a feeling of enthusiasm and eagerness. How do you express excitement?
When I feel excited, I might say, I can't wait, or this is so exciting. Other words you can use are thrilled, enthusiastic, or eager. For example, I am thrilled about the trip, or I feel enthusiastic about the project.
Excitement can be shown through animated gestures, a high energy level, and a big smile. It's a positive emotion that can be very motivating.
Yes, sharing your excitement with others can make them feel excited too. Now, let's discuss the emotion of sympathy. Sympathy is the feeling of sorrow for someone else's misfortune. How do you express sympathy?
When I feel sympathetic, I might say, I am sorry for your loss, or I feel for you. Other words you can use are compassionate, understanding, or supportive. For example, I am compassionate towards your situation, or I feel supportive of your struggle.
Showing sympathy can also be done through actions, like offering a hug or a kind gesture. It's about being there for someone in their time of need.
Yes, expressing sympathy can provide comfort and support to others. Now, let's review what we talked about today. We learned how to express gratitude, compassion, embarrassment, empathy, guilt, joy, nervousness, envy, contentment, confusion, excitement, and sympathy.
That's right, James. We use simple words and phrases to describe these emotions. We also talked about how our body language can show our feelings.
As we wrap up this podcast, let's share some tips on mastering the art of emotional expression. Sophia, what are some tips you have for our listeners?
One important tip is to always be honest about your feelings. Don't be afraid to express how you really feel. Also, practice active listening when others share their emotions. Show empathy and understanding. And remember, it's okay to take your time to find the right words.
Those are great tips, Sophia. We discussed essential emotions such as love, anger, fear, and surprise, providing vocabulary and phrases suitable for both intermediate and elementary English learners. We emphasized the importance of recognizing and articulating emotions, not only for effective communication, but also for building empathy and connection with others.
We also touched on body language and nonverbal cues that often accompany these emotions, illustrating how our expressions, gestures, and tone of voice can enhance the message we convey. Whether it's through a smile of joy, a frown of confusion, or tears of sadness, each emotion has its unique way of manifesting.
Additionally, we explored complex emotions such as guilt, envy, and anticipation, offering insights into how these feelings can be managed and expressed constructively. Learning to navigate through mixed emotions like relief mixed with regret or contentment mingled with curiosity is essential for personal growth and effective social interactions.
As we wrap up, we want to encourage our listeners to continue practicing these emotional expressions in everyday conversations. Remember, expressing your feelings openly and empathetically fosters stronger connections and promotes emotional well-being.
Thank you all for joining us on this journey of exploring emotions in English. We hope you found this podcast insightful and practical for your language learning journey. Stay tuned for more engaging topics in future episodes.
Until next time, keep expressing, connecting, and learning. Goodbye for now.